JT Miller had some borderline horrifying comments after the Rangers lost to the Sharks, and we are breaking them down on today's episode.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1410 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So wanted to go ahead and break down some of the post-game comments from the new New York Ranger captain, JT Miller. These were some eyebrow-raising doozies here, if I do say so myself. We're going to get to that. We're also going to talk a little bit about Brennan Othmann being called up to the New York Rangers and why I think this is a good idea for the Rangers as well as Othmann himself. And then, of course, to close out today's episode, going to talk about Nathan Aspinall signing his ELC with the New York Rangers. But we begin with JT Miller and, like I said, these borderline horrifying comments that he made after the game. You know, we'll get to the quote shortly, but I did want to spend a little bit more time breaking down what happened on the Sharks overtime winning goal. Game-winning goal. I mean, that's redundant, overtime game-winning goal, but you get the idea. JT Miller was on the ice for this and did not have the kind of shift that's going to end up on his career highlight reel when all is said and done. And again, to kind of set the stage for this, we discussed this a little bit during the live episode after the Rangers lost this game to the Sharks. But the entire approach was so wrong. The Rangers were so tentative, so tepid, so scared to make a mistake in overtime. They never even looked at the Sharks' net, despite dominating possession for the first minute and a half, whatever it was there. But then the Sharks eventually get possession. They get a chance to get the game winner. Celebrini almost scores his fourth goal of the night. And Igor was able to make a really nice save when Celebrini came open, through the center of the ice there and got denied on the doorstep by Igor. So now the puck is in the corner, and JT Miller is going to pick it up. There's two Rangers there. It's Miller and it's Schneider, and there's only one Shark there, and it was Celebrini. Miller is going from behind the Ranger net, behind the goal line there, into the corner on the right side, and you figure he's just going to pick it up and start up the ice with it, right? I mean, there'd be no reason not to do that. Instead, for some reason, JT picks up the puck, but then he goes for a backhanded drop pass to Braden Schneider. And I just don't know why he did this, unless he was going off for a line change. That's the only explanation I can think of. But he didn't start the overtime. He hadn't been out there for that long, so I don't think that really works either. The bottom line, there was no reason to make this pass here. Possession is at a premium when it comes to 3-on-3 overtime hockey. And you don't make a pass like this that has such a low percentage of being completed. And even if it does get completed, you've basically gained nothing. I don't understand for the life of me why Miller didn't just continue to head up the ice with the puck. But he didn't do that. Pass is intercepted. And then Celebrini across the ice to Smith. And Smith scores and ends the game. And JT Miller didn't really have the best positioning on the game winner. I mean, honestly, I feel like their fate was borderline sealed as soon as they turned the puck over. I'm not so sure he could have got back into position a whole lot faster than he did. Be that as it may, it obviously was not, a good play. And a lot of you pointed this out as well. After the overtime winner was scored by the Sharks, JT sort of threw his hands up a little bit and kind of what was that kind of thing. It's not good, obviously, to show up your teammates. I'm not 100% sure that that's what JT Miller was doing here, though. But it's especially not good to show up your teammates if you're more to blame for the goal being scored than anybody else that was on the ice. And again, I'm not sure what the intentions were. It might have just been a frustration kind of thing where you throw your hands up. Obviously a frustrating night, frustrating performance by the Rangers, but they basically did it to themselves by, no showing the first half of the game, letting the Sharks skate circles around them, letting them dominate the overtime, letting them score early in periods, letting them score late in periods. You get the idea. With all that said, let's go to some of these post-game comments that JT Miller had after this matchup against the San Jose Sharks. That's what he had to say about it. Not ready to play. Didn't really respect our opponent today. And Mike Sullivan was asked about this response from JT Miller and was asked if it was concerning. And Sullivan just said, very. And yeah, it is concerning. It's concerning because the Rangers should flat out know better. And we're getting to the point where maybe we're realizing that they don't know better. But man, this is a veteran team. Like a lot of the guys, the leaders of this team, everybody wearing a letter on this squad, these guys have been around. They've had their ups and downs in the NHL. They've had their highlights. They've had their lowlights. But one thing that they should all be keenly aware of by now is that there are no easy wins in the NHL. There just aren't. I mean, you might, 82-game season, if you're lucky, 2, maybe 3 cakewalk type wins every season. Possibly. You remember a bunch of years ago when actually Knobloch was coaching the Rangers, because that's when the coaching staff had COVID, and they beat the Flyers 9-0. That was an easy win. It was 9-0 after the second period, and at that point, you're home free, right? That very, very rarely happens. You have to battle for everything that you get in this league, and the Rangers just didn't seem willing to do that, or for one reason or another, just thought, again, that they could basically sleepwalk their way to a win in this game. And now you've got the captain basically admitting that that's what happened, that they didn't respect their opponent. That's insanely foolish to do that. The Sharks, for all their struggles and the fact that they are going through this lengthy rebuild right here, they obviously do have some very young, exciting, talented players. I wonder what that's like, right? But you've got that coupled with, some proud veterans on that team. Toffoli's over there now, Reeves, Wenberg, to name a couple of the former Rangers, so I don't know. I don't know what made them think that they could just kind of take it easy and come away with 2 points. But obviously that didn't happen, and it backfired. And you just hope that, as Mike Sullivan mentioned after this game, that is their wake-up call. Now, as far as JT Miller, getting back to him here, on one hand, I can at least appreciate the honesty. I don't like it when these players kind of just deflect and just kind of make excuses. And, that's just the way the cookie crumbles. Those kinds of answers. Not a big fan of that. But at the same time, bro, JT, you're the captain of this team, right? Like, you're the one that has to drive the message into the heads of your teammates that we got to come out and we got to bring it tonight, and we got to make sure we're ready to go. And it doesn't matter who we're playing. We're going to have to work, and we're going to have to grind our way to a victory if we want to get 2 points in this game here. It's certainly the job of the coaching staff to do that. And JT Miller is not alone, because there's other veterans in that locker room. There's other guys who wear letters, but he is the new captain of the New York Rangers. So he's got to be the one, or at least one of the main voices in that locker room, driving that into these guys' heads that we got to bring it. It doesn't matter that this team is winless. They're still professional hockey players. And if we sleepwalk, if we take our foot off the gas, then we might not like the result. And obviously the Rangers didn't like the result in this game. There were a couple of other quotes. There was one from Adam Fox where he said, "Pretty piss poor out of us." He was referring to the first period. And then JT Miller himself said, "Not the identity that we want to build here." So, okay, so do something about it. Both of them, all the veteran leaders, do something about it. Make sure that this does not repeat itself against Calgary on Sunday night, because Calgary is really struggling to start the season. I mentioned that this game against the Sharks was kind of a must-win game. I mean, do I just say the same thing about the Flames? Because now the Rangers are digging an even bigger hole, and the Flames are probably even worse than the Sharks. The Flames are 1-6-1 to start the season. They have scored 13 goals. They have scored 13 goals in 8 games. That is it. The Rangers, by comparison, as much as they're struggling offensively, 21 goals in 9 games. That is a vast difference. You lose this game to Calgary, and I think you're going to pretty much lose the fan base at that point. That really could happen. So, we'll see how it goes. But obviously, these were some eye-opening quotes from the Ranger captain. And you hope that it's a lesson learned, and that moving forward, this won't happen again. The Rangers won't take anything for granted. They'll understand that we got to bring it every single night if we want a chance of walking out of this building with 2 points. So hopefully that is the case moving forward. So in just a second, the Rangers, we're going to talk about this. They did call up Brennan Othmann. There was the injury to Matt Rempe. And we're going to talk about why this is a good idea and what to expect from Brennan Othmann, and why this truly might be his sink or swim moment with the New York Rangers. We'll get to all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game and want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we're going to go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Big shout out to the everydayers. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting this podcast through all the ups and downs of Ranger hockey. Rangers going to be back in action on Sunday night at 8 o'clock in Calgary against the Flames. I just mentioned that, but that game will presumably see the season debut of Brennan Othmann. Speaking of which, yes, the Rangers have indeed called up Brennan Othmann back to the NHL, which is kind of crazy when you think about it, because it wasn't that long ago. I mean, maybe a week, if that ago, where we found out, through various reports that it doesn't sound like the Rangers are necessarily like openly shopping for Brennan Othmann and they're just going to sell him to the highest bidder. But it does sound like, per these reports, that they are certainly open for business. They will certainly listen to your offer if you call them about Brennan Othmann. And now, at that point, we were kind of wondering if Othmann would ever even play another game for the New York Rangers, but it looks like he's going to. We discussed not too long ago the idea of calling up one of the kids from the Hartford Wolfpack, because even after this latest debacle against the Sharks and the game before that against the Wild, which wasn't really a whole heck of a lot better if we're being honest, we discussed the idea of calling up one of these kids, giving the team a spark, and giving them hopefully a little bit more offensive punch moving forward, whether that's Othmann or Berard or Perreault. The Rangers have decided to go with Brennan Othmann. And the funny thing about that is we discussed this, again, about a week ago on Locked On New York Rangers here, and I kind of laid out the case for all three of those players, like made a case for every single one of them, why this guy should be called up, why that guy should be called up, and what the best move might be if you're only going to call up one of them. I had Othmann ranked number 3 of those 3 players as far as who I would like to see called up, but then as I was talking about him, I almost kind of talked myself into the idea of Othmann being the guy to be called up, because this is this like could be a legitimate, bona fide, sink or swim kind of a moment, kind of an opportunity for Brennan Othmann with the New York Rangers. He's only played 25 games with the Rangers, but thus far it's been very underwhelming. He's only put up 2 points in those games. Obviously had a shaky preseason this year as well. Was cut, earlier than people that you would think he would have, outlasted in Ranger training camp and then the preseason and all that. So the idea of calling up Othmann and potentially just plugging him right into a top 6 role, that certainly intrigues me, because, again, this is your chance if you're Brennan Othmann. Some of the issues when it comes to some of the Ranger prospects over the years, and this is not the full story, but it's at least a chapter in the story, is that when the Rangers have called up these kids, or in some cases just put them straight into the NHL, guys like Lafreniere and Kakko, a lot of times there hasn't really been an obvious spot for them in the top 6. But that is not the case right now. You can call it Brennan Othmann and put him right in the top 6, and nobody's going to blink. And in fact, I think most Ranger fans, I don't know this for sure, I can't speak for everybody, but I think most Ranger fans would actually prefer that be exactly what the Rangers do here. They call him up and they give him a legitimate, bona fide chance. I mean, really, what do you have to lose? I know this team just got 5 goals against the Sharks, but A, it's the Sharks, and B, it felt like a little bit, I don't want to say a fluke, but I guess an anomaly would be a better word. Because call me crazy, I'm not counting on Taylor Radish getting a hat trick every single night. That was awesome. Great performance by him. Props to him for bringing it. Yuso Parsons scoring that game as well. But I don't think you can expect that kind of depth scoring from the Rangers night in and night out, from those guys that are currently playing in the bottom 6. And so with all that said, I think Othmann putting him in the top 6 is a no-brainer, especially when all you have to do to make that happen is take Connor Sheary out of the top 6. And nothing against Sheary. I mean, look, he's a veteran player. Hasn't really been all that productive this season. He's doing what he can, but there's a reason, obviously, why he was on a PTO this year, and he makes the team, and good for him and all that, but he makes the team and basically almost right away had to jump into a top 6 role due to the injury to Vincent Trocheck. But Sheary doesn't get top billing over Brennan Othmann or any of these Ranger prospects that they would care to bring up. So for me, that's the obvious move to make here. Sheary drops out of the top 6. You put Brennan Othmann in the top 6. You could put, I don't know. What do we want to do here for the top 6? I mean, you've got Panarin, Mika, and Lafreniere all together. You've got JT Miller with Will Cooley. We could put Brennan Othmann there. I mean, that's a hard-hitting physical line. I think that's probably what I would do. I would give that a shot at first. You could flip-flop Lafreniere and Cooley like they've done in the past. That's an option as well. Maybe do that. Maybe put Cooley with Mika and Panarin, because then that gives that line a little bit more physicality that obviously they're lacking if they go with Lafreniere and Mika and Panarin. And then Lafreniere is with JT Miller, and Brennan Othmann plays there as well. Why not? I mean, there's no real strong case to be made against it, because again, this team isn't really scoring right now, and they need some more offensive punch. But as far as Othmann, I mean, a lot of you guys know the story by now. He has scored at every level of hockey in which he's ever played, except for the NHL. 2 seasons in the OHL for Brennan Othmann with Flint and with Peterborough, 122 games, 79 goals, 85 assists for a total of 164 points in 122 games. And then even in Hartford, he's been relatively productive there as well. 98 games, 33 goals, 37 assists. He is a minus 25 in that time. But then this season with Hartford, 4 games total, no goals, 1 assist, and he is even plus minus. The Wolfpack, the guys that you would expect to be leading the way scoring are not doing so right now, between Othmann and certainly Brett Berard as well. He's off to a little bit of a slow start in the scoring department there. And then Othmann with the Rangers, I mean, 25 games, no goals, 2 assists, and somehow a +7 despite that. But obviously, if they call him up this time, he'll presumably be in a bigger role. He'll get a little bit more ice time, and hopefully he can give this team at least a little bit of a spark. I mean, the guy can flat out shoot the puck. We saw that in the preseason when he scored on a one-timer. That was a great play. He'll add some more physicality to a team that has been playing physical, but you can always use a little bit more of that. So for me, calling up Othmann is a no-brainer. Like I said, not a no-brainer, but you know what I mean. They need some kind of a spark. One of these 3 forwards, Othmann, Berard, Perreault, they need to be called up and given a chance to hopefully ignite this team a little bit, or at least contribute in some way. As I mentioned, Othmann did not have a good showing in the preseason. He was cut, relatively early. But the one thing the Rangers cannot do here, and I really am afraid that this is exactly what they're going to do, they can't call him up and just put him on the 4th line and give him 6 minutes a night. Now, I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as I just described it. I could completely see them calling him up and putting him on the 4th line. The one saving grace there, though, is that we have seen the Rangers distribute ice time a little bit more evenly this year than in previous seasons. That 4th line of, it's changed a little bit game to game, but it's mostly been Edstrom, Carrick, and Rempe. Those guys have kind of played their way to more ice time, and they've played their way to getting onto the ice in bigger spots in the game, spots that they never would have seen the ice in previous years under different coaches. So that's been good, but I do not want to see Brennan Othmann get called up and just put onto the 4th line and limited ice time. This is your chance. It's sink or swim time. And I realize that Othmann has been underwhelming when he's been in the NHL with the Rangers thus far. I realize you have to earn it and blah, 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 and all that good stuff. But this is your former first-round pick, and you are trying to see if he's going to be part of your future. The way to do that, especially now with the Rangers being as thin as they are, especially when you consider the Trocheck injury, you put him in the top 6, legitimate, bona fide, sink or swim territory for Brennan Othmann. And on top of that, if you still do want to trade him, well, you're showcasing him for the rest of the NHL as well. Now, it is kind of that catch-22, because if you call up Othmann and he actually does well, and he actually does produce in the top 6, then all of a sudden, all of us kind of start to pump the brakes a little bit when it comes to this Brennan Othmann talk. And it's like, all right, well, maybe he can stick around. Maybe he's going to contribute this year more than we thought he was going to. And if he struggles, everybody will be saying to trade him. But you don't have a whole lot of leverage right now when it comes to Brennan Othmann trade talk. I mean, I know he's produced at other levels, but he hasn't done it in the NHL, and certainly other teams are aware of that as well. So we'll see what happens. But for me, you called him up anyway, and don't healthy scratch him. For the love of God, I will lose my mind if Brennan Othmann is a healthy scratch in Calgary on Sunday. This team, again, they're sputtering. They need wins. Othmann has already played in the NHL. He's not going to gain anything by sitting in the press box and watching, the Ranger depth forwards do what they do night in and night out. It's not going to make a difference. Just put him out there. If you're calling him up, put him out there to play. Simple as that. So that really needs to happen. And he can't be banished to the 4th line, and he cannot get just a miserably small amount of ice time. If we can avoid those things, then I'll be happy. At least they're giving him a chance. Even if he struggles, even if it doesn't work, at least for finding out for sure in real time whether Brennan Othmann has a long-term future with the New York Rangers or not. And I think that would be positive to basically get some closure there. So in just a second, going to keep everything rolling. We had some news the other day. Nathan Aspinall, former 5th-round pick by the New York Rangers, signs his ELC. We'll talk a little bit about him and his NHL prospects, and we will do that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real, getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout, it is easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer for your team. That's where Gametime comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. Gametime is the best because it's got so many awesome features that let you know exactly what you're in for before you go to the game or the concert, the special event, whatever it might be. One of my personal favorites is the very simple fact that there are no hidden fees at checkout. We've all been there one time or another. We're excited. We think we got a good deal. I'm going to this game. I'm going to that show. Again, whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden you get hit with those annoying late fees at the very end of your checkout process. Doesn't happen with Gametime. And you can even find NHL tickets for under $25. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers by talking a little bit about Nathan Aspinall. He signed his 3-year entry-level contract with the New York Rangers just the other day. In fact, so it's Friday. He did it on Thursday. This episode might be out certainly on audio platforms a couple days from now, but the bottom line, Aspinall recently signed his ELC with the New York Rangers. Now, this is a 3-year deal, although it's very likely going to slide to 2026, 2027. The only way that would not happen, my understanding, is he would have to play a minimum of 10 games with the New York Rangers this season, and that feels very, very unlikely to happen for a multitude of reasons. So that being the case, yeah, it will slide a year, will his ELC. But Aspinall right now, 19 years old. He plays both wings. He was taken by the Rangers in the 5th round of the 2024 NHL draft at number 159 overall, lefty shot. And he is one of several giants that the Rangers have taken in late rounds in recent seasons. Matt Rempe obviously comes to mind. Adam Edstrom. They both become, regulars with the New York Rangers. Dylan Robrick is somebody that's got some buzz, had a strong season with the Wolfpack last year. He's a giant as well. They took him in the 6th round. And then Aspinall was taken in the 5th round. And this year, a defenseman, Evan Passmore, who I believe was taken in the 6th round, he's a giant as well. So the Rangers really like their late round giants. And, we'll get to Aspinall in a second. But let me just say, I can appreciate that strategy. I know there's some people that kind of make fun of them for it, but the bottom line, when you get to like the 5th round, certainly the 6th and 7th rounds, there's only so much information about these guys. There's only so much that you can possibly know about these players. And the one thing that for sure will not slump is somebody's size. So everything else being equal, it does get to be a dart throw once you start to get, really late in the NHL draft, and it's a little bit of a crapshoot. That being the case, take the giant, right? Why not? Somebody who's 6'7", he's not going to show up for training camp and be 5'10". That's just not the way that it's going to work. So I have no problem with that strategy that the Rangers have employed late in drafts in recent seasons. But as for Aspinall, he is in his 4th season with the Flint Firebirds of the OHL. He's actually the captain of the Firebirds at this moment. And this season, 6 games, 4 assists, Okay, so let's try that again. 6 games, 6 goals, 4 assists for a total of 10 points in the 6 games. Probably not a coincidence that the Rangers got him signed to his ELC, with him obviously producing right now. He's also a +3 thus far this season. And in the 4 seasons combined in the OHL with the Firebirds, 162 games for Aspinall, 42 goals, 53 assists, 95 points, also a -23 in that time. And this will be his final season of OHL hockey. Also worth pointing out that he actually has already made his pro debut. He ended up playing 5 games with the Hartford Wolfpack at the end of last season. No points in those games. He was also a -2. And when his junior season ends this year with the Flint Firebirds, whatever that might be, however far they go in the playoffs or don't go in the playoffs, got to figure he's probably on the first plane to Hartford, and he'll be joining the Wolfpack down the stretch this season, as he did last year as well. But he did play in the preseason with the Rangers. One of the more notable things that he did was he dropped the gloves with Nathan Laguerre of the Devils. Wasn't really that memorable of a fight. They basically just kind of wrestled each other down to the ice. But that was at least a noteworthy moment for Aspinall during what turned out to be obviously his only preseason game with the Rangers this season, or this preseason, as it were. But in that game, he was a +2. He ended up getting into the fight, obviously, the 5 penalty minutes, 11 minutes and 23 seconds of ice time, and also had 12 shifts on the night. So not like a standout performance, but not bad either. He was also involved in the rookie series. Somebody to keep an eye on moving forward. I mean, as we all know, the best thing you can say about him is certainly that, size is not going to slump. But we do have a scouting report here from the Elite Prospects 2024 NHL Draft Guide. That's what they had to say about Aspinall. For the most part, Aspinall stations himself around the net. He moves across the slot, pushes high, and blocks the goalie views, and while deflecting every puck that comes within his wingspan. He's also a skilled, adaptable passer who feathers pucks through tight seams off the backhand and even draws defensive pressure to pass through it. Yeah, that is something that I've noticed. Again, once you get into these late rounds, it's hard to find a whole bunch of in-depth scouting reports. I mean, Elite Prospects, they scout everybody, so you can always count on them. But yeah, I mean, you look around, you try to find as much information as you can. It does sound like he scores a good amount of his goals from right there in the crease, from in deep. Some dirty goals to be sure. And I know Ranger fans were always looking for more of that. So clearly Aspinall is somebody that uses his size to his advantage and does so in a way that, he could produce offense from it. Sounds like he's also, a pretty solid passer as well. But yeah, we'll track his progress. We'll track his development just like we do all the other prospects here on Locked On New York Rangers. But obviously, congratulations to Aspinall for that. And hopefully he continues to do his thing in the OHL and has a solid season. And we will probably see him with the Wolfpack at some point later this season. But we'll call it there. Do you guys want me to should we do another live stream after the Flames game? That's going to be another hour later. And it's a Sunday night. I don't know if people are going to be staying up late for that one. We'll see. It's, if they win, I feel like I'll be much more likely to do it because it'll be exciting to finally see this team win a game. Then again, if they lose, and that's in its own roundabout way, that's kind of exciting too, because now you've lost the Sharks and the Flames back to back. And I'm sure a lot of people would show up for that episode. But we'll see. We'll think about maybe another live stream after the Flames game on Sunday night. But we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.